Pregnancy today comes with a checklist, doctor's appointments, ultrasounds, prenatal vitamins, a detailed birth plan, a hospital bag packed 3 weeks early, apps that tell you exactly how big your baby is this week. This week, it's the size of a mango, next week an avocado, the week after that, a small cantaloupe. There are entire industries built around the 9 months before a baby arrives. Now delete all of it. No doctors, no vitamins, no ultrasounds. No way of knowing if anything is going wrong until something already has. No pain medication, no emergency room, no phone to call anyone. Just a woman, a growing belly, and a group of people who had seen this before and were doing their best with whatever knowledge they had managed to pass down through generations of trial, error, and survival. That was pregnancy for most of human history. And the story of how ancient humans handled it is not the grim, brutal picture most people assume. It is actually one of the most fascinating chapters in all of human prehistory. Because pregnancy did not just change one woman. It changed the entire group around her. Let's start with how they even knew. Today, you buy a test from a pharmacy, wait 2 minutes, and get an answer. Ancient humans had no such luxury. But the human body is not subtle about pregnancy. Morning sickness, missed periods, fatigue so deep it feels like the body is being shut down from the inside. Breasts changing. Appetite shifting. The belly slowly beginning to announce itself. These signals are obvious enough that ancient humans absolutely recognize them. In fact, one of the oldest recorded pregnancy tests in history comes from ancient Egypt, around 1350 BC, where women were instructed to urinate on barley and wheat seeds. If the seeds sprouted, she was pregnant. Modern scientists actually tested this method and found it worked with roughly 70% accuracy. Because the elevated hormones in a pregnant woman's urine genuinely do accelerate seed germination. Ancient humans were running chemistry experiments without knowing what chemistry was. But even before civilizations were keeping records, hunter-gatherer women and the experienced members of their groups would have recognized the signs of pregnancy quickly. In a small group of 20 to 50 people, where everyone knew each other's bodies, rhythms, and routines intimately, a change that obvious would not have stayed private for long. And the moment it was known, things changed. The first thing that likely shifted was workload. Hunter-gatherer societies were not built on sympathy alone, they were built on survival. But survival meant keeping a pregnant woman healthy enough to deliver a living child, because infant mortality was brutal and maternal mortality was real. Protecting a pregnancy was not sentiment, it was strategy. Archaeological evidence and observations of modern hunter-gatherer communities both point toward the same pattern. Pregnant women were not excluded from group activities, but their roles adjusted. Gathering continued. Moving with the group continued. But the most physically demanding work, long-distance hunting, heavy carrying, dangerous terrain, began to shift toward others in the group, not through formal rules. Through the quiet, constant negotiation of people who depended on each other to survive. The group absorbed the extra weight, literally and figuratively. Food also changed. Not through any formal prenatal nutrition plan, but through observation and accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. Older women in the group, the ones who had been pregnant, who had watched others through pregnancy, who had seen what went wrong and what went right, carried knowledge that was not written anywhere but lived in their memory and in their hands. They knew which plants seemed to ease nausea. They knew which foods seemed to strengthen women during pregnancy. They knew what physical signs meant, things were progressing normally, and what signs meant danger. This knowledge was not random. It was built over thousands of generations of watching, remembering, and passing information forward in a world where forgetting could cost lives. Cravings, which modern medicine now understands as the body's way of signaling nutritional needs, were almost certainly noticed by ancient humans too. A pregnant woman suddenly desperate for certain plants, certain animals, certain minerals, in a group paying close attention to her, those signals would have been observed and responded to. Pica, the craving for non-food substances like clay or soil, actually occurs because certain soils contain minerals like iron and calcium that a pregnant body needs. Ancient humans who followed those cravings were solving nutritional deficiencies without any understanding of nutrition at all. The body is smarter than the brain. But pregnancy was not only a physical event, it was a social one. In a population where every new person born was critical to the survival of the whole, that was not a small thing. Some of the oldest known ritual objects in the archaeological record are figurines of pregnant women. The Venus of Willendorf, carved around 25,000 years ago, depicts a heavily pregnant female form. Similar figures have been found scattered across Europe and Asia. Archaeologists debate exactly what these figurines meant to the people who made them. Fertility symbols, objects of worship, representations of an important female deity, protective talismans carried during pregnancy. The exact meaning may never be known, but the fact that ancient humans carved, carried, and preserved these objects tells us something undeniable. Pregnancy was significant enough to make art about. In a world where every object required enormous effort to create, you only carved what mattered. Then there was the fear. Because as meaningful as pregnancy was, it was also terrifying. And ancient humans knew exactly why it was terrifying because they had watched what could go wrong. Miscarriage, stillbirth, complications during delivery that killed both mother and child, infection after birth,